I had one incredibly insane childhood, which translated into, by the time I was in my 20s, I was an alcoholic. I was really heavily addicted to pills. I was basically one fucked up dude. And I was living with my aunt and uncle at the time, and they decided I should go see a psychiatrist. So they sent me to this very expensive, doctor, psychiatrist. And I remember walking to his office, and his walls were just covered with diplomas and doctor this, and university that, and this college and that college. I mean, half his office was filled with diplomas. And now, during that time, my self-esteem, my confidence was pretty much in the basement. And when I would be talking to him, I'd sort of have my head down, talking to the floor. And almost every single session, as my head is down, talking, I hear this, and I look up, and the motherfucker is sleeping or falling asleep on me, snoring. Now, if your self-esteem and self-confidence is like, bottomed out anyway, then your therapist is falling asleep on you. That doesn't do a whole hell of a lot for your self-worth and your confidence. So, and then after every session, he'd go to this closet, open the closet door, and there was a whole 5 shelves full of drug samples in there, and he'd give me a different drug every week and say, "Hey, go try this how you feel with this." So this went on for a while, and I eventually wound up going to kind of a mental health center, I guess you would call it, clinic, something like that. And there was a bunch of therapists there, but I wound up seeing the top therapist, the head psychologist. And his wall was full of, diplomas and this college and that college and all these fancy things. And he had all these letters after his name. And after I saw him for a while, he kind of decided I was kind of a lost cause. So he said, "You know what, I think I'm going to send you to see a female therapist." So there was a girl, I still call her a girl, I guess she was 22 years old, working in the clinic at the time, and she wasn't even a therapist yet. She was just a young girl, still in college, and hadn't even gotten a degree yet. Well, I think maybe she had her master's, and she was working as an intern, getting her credits going for her master's, getting her credits as working in this clinic. And I went into her office, and the first thing I noticed when I walked into her office, that there was no diplomas, no fancy stuff on her wall. Of course, she didn't have anything to put on a wall because she hadn't even graduated college yet. But she turned out to be one of the coolest, most down-to-earth, honest, just an amazing girl, young woman that I've ever met, and I really attribute her to basically saving my life, along with a couple other people in my life at the time, but she was a main influence of actually saving my life. Under her guidance, I stopped all the pills, got through all the alcohol. Obviously not overnight, it took a while, but it was her guidance and love and compassion and caring for me that really basically saved my life. Now, as I got older and got out in life and started, meeting all kinds of people from all walks of life, I kind of carried that lesson with me, that just because somebody has a lot of letters after their name, PhD this and MD that, and a lot of big fancy diplomas on their wall, doesn't necessarily mean anything. I suppose if you're going to go for open heart surgery or brain surgery or something, well, maybe you want a doctor that has a lot of, letters after his or her name or a lot of diplomas on their wall. But for the most part, I found throughout life, it doesn't really have to mean or necessarily mean shit just because they got a lot of fancy titles after their name. Now, as I got involved in the acting community later on and started teaching, I found a lot of students coming to me that, especially when I was teaching in LA, that had been to all these fancy teachers and all these well-known classes, and the teachers had written books and everything. And basically, a lot of the students coming from these classes, they sucked. They were terrible. And then on the flip side, I'd have students coming in the class that had never taken an acting class in their life, had never been up in front of people, basically, standing in front of a class or an audience, and they just absolutely blew everybody away. They were like awesome. They just had a God-given talent, gift, and like I said, never been to any of those fancy classes or anything like that. Now, as the more I got involved in the acting community and people began to know who I was, and I started doing a little producing and directing, and my reputation as an acting instructor got bigger and better, people started sending me their films, their independent films, whether they were the director or acting in the film, and they'd say, hey, take a look at this, check out my film, check out the film I'm in. And in all honesty, about 95% of them sucked. They were terrible. And some of them had a whole list on their resume, IMDb credits, I'm in this, I'm in that, I got these IMDb credits. And even if they had SAG, you know, it's no different if they have SAG, Aftra on their resume. I'm a SAG, Aftra actress or actor. In and of itself, those two titles don't mean shit. You can basically, if you got the money, you can hire a crew, and you can stand on your head and sing your favorite song, standing on your head, and farting the Star Spangled Banner out of your ass, and have it filmed. And if IMDb, the powers to be there, in their words, feel that it's of interest to the general public, guess what? You got an IMDb credit. And the same with SAG, SAG-AFTRA. You can, you know, be an extra basically on so many movies, and eventually you're going to have enough SAG vouchers that you can, if you got the money, pay the dues and be a SAG actor, actress. Doesn't mean anything at all by itself. So, over those years, over say the past 15, 20 years, I have seen literally thousands, and when I say thousands, I mean thousands of independent films that people have submitted, or they've contacted me and say, go check it out on IMDb, go check it out on YouTube or Vimeo or something, whether they're the director or the actor involved. And I look at them, and they're horrible. They're terrible. And the acting is horrible and terrible. So you always have to look at the actor and the actress in it and the work they're doing. Whether the quality of the work they're doing, whether it's their movie they're directing, or they've written, or a movie they've been in, or a TV show, you have to always look at the quality of the product. Just because there's a bunch of, they got a whole shitload of IMDb credits, and they got SAG Aftra up on their resume, means absolutely shit. Nothing. It can be, you know, I'm not saying that all of them are terrible and horrible. You know, you see a lot of really, really good stuff on IMDb, and there's certainly a lot of talented SAG-AFTRA actors and actresses. So I'm certainly not saying that as a blanket statement, but I can tell you from personal experience over many, many, many years that when you just see those words, IMDb credit or SAG-AFTRA actor, actress, in and of itself means absolutely nothing. And every time I see that or see evidence of that, I can't help think back to that lesson I learned many, many years ago. that just because somebody has a bunch of letters after their name, a bunch of titles, they got a lot of diplomas on the wall, it means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. In fact, most of the, I would say, in a general statement, most of the more creative people I've met in my life, the more talented people, the more gifted people, whether it be in acting or film or some other area of life, are the ones that don't have all the, fancy shit after their letters after their name and all the titles. So be very wary when you see, somebody with all that stuff after their names and all those titles. Always make sure you check out the person, the quality of work they do, and the quality of the work they're in, whether that be an actor, an actress, a musician, a doctor, a lawyer, or Indian chief. Thanks for listening.